Way back in 2015, Shigeru Miyamoto, aka Daddy Pikmin himself, was interviewed by Eurogamer. And during this interview, he claimed that Pikmin 4 was, quote-unquote, very close to completion, which is now known as the biggest lie of all time. Now I, along with many other Pikmin fans, were very delighted to hear this news, especially since it hadn't even been 2 years since Pikmin 3 released. But as to be expected with Pikmin, the announcement of a game does not necessarily indicate an imminent release. With this case specifically, all we've heard about Pikmin 4 since is another interview with Miyamoto where he luckily confirmed that Pikmin 4 was still in development and the newly released game at the time, Hey Pikmin, was in fact not the game in question. To date, I've still never played Hey Pikmin, and I don't ever plan to because the game looks like hot garbage, but I'll save that topic for another time. Anyway, since that interview, we've still yet to hear or see anything related to Pikmin 4. We did get Pikmin 3 Deluxe last year though, so I think Pikmin 4 could turn up at any moment, especially given Nintendo's new relatively short turnaround between the announcement and release of a game. So until that day comes, if it ever does, I'd like to do a bit of speculation and talk about my hope for the game, as well as the series as a whole. The first thing I want is actually something we've already seen in the Pikmin series, and that's the return/reimagining of old areas. In Pikmin 2 we got the Awakening Wood, which is essentially a remixed version of the Forest of Hope from Pikmin 1. A perplexing pool, which is the return of the distant spring, and the Wistful Wild, which combines the impact site and the final trial from the original game. I'm assuming that this was done in the first 2 games in an effort to both save resources and cut down on development time. Whatever the reason though, I think it's a really fun and neat concept to revisit the previous areas and see how they changed over time. Like I mentioned in the music video, Pikmin is about nature, and nature is constantly evolving and changing. And what better way to showcase the evolution of something is there than to revisit that very thing? I don't want Pikmin 4 to be a cut and paste of Pikmin 3 or any of the old games for that matter, but I think there's still some good material to be made from the existing areas. We got a little taste of this idea in the Almar's comeback side story in Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and I love seeing how the areas changed after the main adventure. Change in this mode is really only shown on a micro level, like there being overgrown grass where there wasn't before and having different types of gates or walls in place. But with a brand new game, I think there could really be something special to be had. Now I don't think I could talk about this idea without mentioning the Forgotten Cove in Pikmin 3, aka the Forest Navel to Pikmin veterans. Something like this will be an excellent implementation of the idea. Something where it's not too obvious that you're revisiting an old area unless you're deliberately looking for clues or comparing the 2 maps. I've been told I'm not the most creative person ever, though I think otherwise. Either way, I don't know exactly what I changed about any of the Pikmin 3 areas, but after seeing the Pikmin team completely transform the Forest Navel from a desolate, scary, and quite frankly my least favorite area from the first game into my favorite mission mode map, I have no doubt whatsoever that they could do something just as incredible with Pikmin 4. Next up is caves. We first saw caves in Pikmin 2, where they caused great pain to players looking for a fair and balanced game. They are filled with all types of real-world treasure, from cherries to activity arouser, to classic Nintendo memorabilia like the Rob robot from the NES days and his colored stack-up bricks. I think it's these caves that truly sparked my love for the series and its immense lore. The caves certainly weren't always fair, especially the ones in the Wistful Wild, but even those caves are enjoyable in some sense. A lot of them have really interesting designs, and they house some of the most unique enemies in the game, like the Man-at-Legs and the Water Wraith. I'm not asking for the caves to be the main focus of Pikmin 4, but it would be nice if they made a return in some fashion. One of the main things I believe Pikmin 3 was lacking was true difficulty. The game was very hand-holdy, and it gave you a lot of unnecessary help throughout the game. I think adding the caves back would be great as an optional addition to the main adventure, like a side quest if you will. They could balance out the difficulty by making those caves challenging for more experienced players, not nearly as hard or obnoxious as the Pikmin 2 days, but still more challenging than the above ground sections nonetheless. It would also be cool to bring in more real-world items. I mean, PNF 404 is clearly Earth after all, right? Having more real-world items would make the world feel much more lived in, while also adding to the lore and mystery behind what exactly happened to the humans on this version of Earth. Now this next thing is almost guaranteed to happen in Pikmin 4, and that's adding 2 new Pikmin types. And I have one idea here that could be pretty interesting, I think. Climbing. Having the ability to climb would add so much verticality to the environment, and it wouldn't be too far-fetched if you really think about it. I see insects and animals climbing on walls all the time in real life, so it wouldn't be too crazy to see the same thing in Pikmin now, wouldn't it? We already got a little taste of this in Pikmin 3 with the spider webs, so we know it can work within the Pikmin world. Think about it, if there was a treasure on a high ledge that not even the yellows can reach, instead of adding a weight puzzle like the ones in Pikmin 3 that could be easily cheesed by the winged Pikmin, you could alternatively whip out some of your climbing Pikmin and make your way up there. We've already seen Pikmin climb on sticks, so couldn't there be another surface where the captain could climb alongside them? There could also be obstacles for this as well, such as a horizontal wall that only climbing Pikmin could break, or random enemies that bust through the wall to attack your squad. So you know what other type of Pikmin we need? I'm thinking RGB Pikmin, or more specifically, Chameleon Pikmin. These Pikmin could be randomly found throughout the different areas, similar to how you obtain Pikmin in mission mode. Their main ability would be camouflage, meaning obviously that they can blend in with the environment, preventing enemies from seeing them. These Pikmin would be very weak fighters, similar in strength to the winged Pikmin, but they have the advantage of enemies not being able to spot them, so they will be very good for bringing treasure back to the ship safely. However, these Pikmin cannot be taken with you at the end of the day. But here's one more thing that'll truly bring these Pikmin over the edge. Get this, they can also be converted into purple and white Pikmin. That's right, baby, they're back just as they were in Pikmin 2. Now the method of converting the camo Pikmin into white and purple is a pretty interesting process, I think. The basic idea is that there will be 2 new types of sprays in the game, Poison Spray and the returning Ultra Bitter Spray. You probably guessed by now that you would have to spray your Pikmin in order to convert their colors, and you would be right. The Ultra Bitter Spray would essentially be the same as it was in Pikmin 2. I really miss being able to immobilize enemies with the spray and just wail on them as hard as I can. The Poison Spray, on the other hand, is a completely new concept. So how does that work exactly? You would spray the camo Pikmin to convert them to white, but that's not its only use. The spray can also act as a debuff for enemies. If you spray them, they would slowly take tick damage over time, while their health wheel will become purple to represent that they've been poisoned. Just like with the Bulbmin and their base form, the camo Pikmin, the purples and whites would also be unable to leave the area with you, so it's up to you if you want to use your time and resources on them. It could be a good investment, but also not at the same time. So obviously adding the new Poison Spray would also mean adding a new type of berry plant, right? Maybe it could be a more unique plant like a bush or something instead of the standard burgeoning spiderwort. I don't have any specific ideas for this, but alongside the poison plant, I would love to see them expand on the spray system as a whole by adding a plethora of new kinds of berries and sprays. Maybe we could also combine sprays together to make some sort of super spray. I think that would be pretty fun. So this brings me to my final idea for the game. I want Almar to finally get to see his family again. And no, not through emails or getting to hang out on hot date. I want his family to be the main stars of Pikmin 4, aka the 4 main captains. Every Pikmin game has added 1 new captain to the pool, and since Almar's family has 4 members, not including Bulby of course, it's only fitting that they be the captains of the game. The Pikmin series isn't exactly known for having super developed characters, so I think it would be fun to see Almar and his family's misadventures around PNF 404. Besides, I can't imagine we'll be seeing the Copiates again. I'm sure Almar wouldn't want to work with Louie again, so here's to hoping that Almar can at least take a break and see his family again, and maybe we'll get to see them as captains too. Alright, that's gonna be it for today. My ideas here are really ambitious, but I don't think they'd be too out of place if they were actually implemented. If anything, I'm just setting myself up for disappointment, but I don't care. It was really fun to stretch my creative muscles and make some ideas for this video. If you liked my ideas, leave a like or comment, and maybe you could tell me about some ideas of your own. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.